Alright, thank you so much you guys for coming. We're going to be presenting Stepping Stones to Nonprofit. And before we start with the presentation, I want to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. I guess I can start. My name is Anaí Amaris Arcegos. And let's go on.
Hi, I am Yubi Toledo. I'm a junior in biology.
I'm Sabrina Sapian. I'm a junior in marketing.
I'm Honestly Paul. I'm a sophomore in microbiology.
I'm Chelsea Turner. I'm a freshman in communication disorders.
Rafael Garcia, first year in journalism.
Noe Nunez, a junior in engineering.
I'm Luis Marcoloma. I'm a sophomore in mechanical engineering.
I'm Samantha Estabrook. I'm a sophomore studying regional community planning.
I'm Marcus Hellman. I'm a freshman studying landscape architecture.
Hi, I'm Mia Taylor. I'm a freshman in kinesiology for dentistry.
Hi everybody, my name is Sergio Ortiz and I'm a junior studying electrical engineering.
I'm Michael Zedinga. I'm a sophomore in biology.
And I'm Devonta Peacock, a junior in psychology and anthropology.
Part of our program is that we get to experience an alternative spring break. So this spring break, we had the opportunity to go to KC, and we visited a bunch of different nonprofits. There we go. We visited a bunch of different nonprofits in the KC area, learned about them, and just saw a snippet of what we can do in our futures to really better our communities. So this is a list of them. Today we're going to be focusing on Operation Breakthrough and Connecting for Good, however, because we really feel that it encompasses what we're trying to get through to you guys. So Operation Breakthrough, their mission is to provide, as you can see, provide a safe, loving, and educational environment for children in poverty and to empower their families through advocacy, emergency aid, and education. So they actually kind of go through the whole entire child rearing process and not only help the children with their education, but also have support programs for parents. And then Connecting for Good, their mission is to really have everybody included in today's technological world. So they want to be able to provide just digital accessibility to everybody in the KC area and beyond. So Anna is going to be talking a little bit more about the rest of the organization.
All right. Well, before we move on, I have a question. What kind of ideas or what stepping stones do you think make up a nonprofit organization?
Okay, what do you guys think are good qualities of a nonprofit?
What makes them successful?
Well organized.
There's no wrong answer.
Good cause.
Okay. Well, we're from our trip we gained different perspectives, but we came up with 3 as a group, and they are network, revision, and foundation. And with that.
All right, so one of the major and most important components of a nonprofit is networking. And with that, Rafael will explain a little bit of one of the major organizations that we covered during our alternative spring break.
All right, so networking. That's a word that, especially in the college atmosphere, we're all told we have to network, that we have to make these connections with people that we don't know yet. We don't know what they're going to offer us. But on our break to Kansas City, we were able to see the use of networking in real time. We were able to go to these organizations and see how they branch out, how they network with other organizations to provide the services that they need to offer their communities. One of these organizations was Operation Breakthrough. When we went there, we were really impressed with what we saw. I know I was, at least. We saw these teachers that really cared about their students. We saw different medical programs that offered medical attention to these children that maybe otherwise would not receive that assistance. We saw different areas where they networked, especially with different organizations around the community. In education, they partnered with Head Start to provide child care services for people for students that wouldn't attend school yet, for children between the ages of 0 and 5. We also saw them partner with Teach for America to provide some of their teachers, and these were people that were really passionate. They were choosing to be there. They didn't necessarily have to be there. And they also partnered with the schools to provide before and after school programs to keep these children off of the streets where they might be unsupervised. They were providing a safe place for these children to be, and that was only through their networking with different educational organizations. As for health, they also had an on-site clinic where these children, they could go and receive proper medical attention. That was in partnership with Children's Mercy Hospital, which was pretty close by, and then they also had a dental clinic. A lot of these children, they wouldn't receive that care otherwise. They wouldn't go to the dentist. Their parents might not be able to afford to take them. They wouldn't have the time to take them. And they also offered occupational and physical therapy for adults or parents of these children. Expanding on that a little bit, they also had programs for the parents because this organization realized that they can only do so much right there on location. To really care for these children, they had to start at the home. They had to start with their parents. They had to help them improve their lives. Well, anyway, some of the ways that they did that is they offered counseling programs to these parents to help them with whatever issues they might have had. They had people there that helped them apply for the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children Nutrition Assistance. They also had a partnership with an organization that helped them provide temporary shelter to up to 6 families that might have been in need. And they also had family nurturing programs, which helps them build a sense of family, where maybe they might be coming from a single parent household, or there might be a history of abuse or other unorthodox situations. They help them build that family atmosphere. And overall, we were totally and completely impressed with the way that Operation Breakthrough was able to branch out into the community and provide services that went beyond their simple mission of taking care of children. And they were only able to do this through networking.
Great, awesome. All right, so another one, like you heard, was Connecting for Good. Now, the main purpose of Connecting for Good was to, like Anais said, to bridge the gap, the digital gap in between different communities. So they had 2 different locations, this nonprofit. One location was where they provided assistance to elderly that did not know how to use basic computer programs. And they would teach them how to use PowerPoint, Word, so just the basics of computer. For the other location, they had the location specifically in an impoverished area. So why do you think they would have it in an impoverished area? Why would they provide these kinds of services, providing them with computers, with different programs? What's the purpose of them providing them in this specific location?
It's expensive. You have all that.
Right? And do you think the kids would have accessibility otherwise? Perfect. What's another reason?
Just provide them with more skills.
More skills? Perfect. That's great. And when you think about nonprofits, you have to think about the community that you're going to impact. You're supposed to think, or you should think about, what do they need and how can we provide? One neat thing about this nonprofit was that whenever we went and visited, there was an actual community member that was in charge of the actual center. So my next question is, why would it be important for you to see someone that you recognize be in charge of that specific location, in that specific location?
If you feel more included.
Right. That's a great one. It would feel you more like it's more inclusive. What's another one?
Doesn't feel like
Someone's taking over. That's exactly right. This is very important whenever you're planning on opening your own nonprofit, because if people see, you know what, she's from my community, he's from my community, they're more likely to say, you know what, she knows what we're struggling with, or he knows what we're struggling with. So I don't know how many of you are planning on going on to a nonprofit or starting your own nonprofit. You guys raise your hand if you guys are interested. All right, perfect. So that's an important component. You're supposed to know your community and have them relate to you, and you relate to them so you can know how you can bridge that gap and better provide for them. Another one that we really didn't point out during the main presentation was Nonprofit Connect. Now, the reason why we added this one, or this piece to our presentation, was because it's a web of different nonprofits connected with one organization. So the importance of this Nonprofit Connect is that, for example, if G-Dun Construction Company can provide for let's say Ronald McDonald's House Charities, they can connect with each other and kind of build that bridge or that partnership. So whenever you are thinking, well, my nonprofit needs this, I wonder if another nonprofit can provide in that sense. So then this is how this web is connected, so it's interconnected between nonprofits. So the main points that Nonprofit Connect kind of points out is collaboration, expansion, and opportunities. Expanding with different nonprofits, collaborating, because that's one of the main components when you're starting your own nonprofit. And obviously the different opportunities that could be offered. Now with opportunities, I really want to expand. I know that we are in college, and many of us want to start our own nonprofit. When you think about volunteering, you think, well, I want to go and volunteer to a nonprofit, but how will this benefit me if I'm a med major, or if I'm an optometry major or dental major? Like, I want to go and help, but will this take time away from like me? Like, will it deviate me from my own, career purposes? So I want you to think about that. Like Rafael pointed out with Operation Breakthrough, there was different services that were provided, different doctors that were there. So with you going and volunteering and seeing that you can shadow those doctors and still provide those volunteering skills, that's a great opportunity. You can volunteer, but you can also kind of grow in your own career path. So it's just things that you can start thinking about now whenever you start thinking about nonprofit, or if you're not interested in nonprofit, but you still kind of want to gain those skills and still want to provide, you always can think about how there's different ways that you can connect and network with the different nonprofits that you can go and volunteer to. All right.
So as you had just mentioned, networking is obviously a very big important part of, certain nonprofit feeling success with it, but as is vision is one of the main points we're talking about. So going along with vision, just a general thing, how many of you know what are some important components of what a vision statement consists of, or why it's important to have a vision? Anyone?
The important components of a vision is like who, it's for who, what, who, how, and when.
Yes. Okay. Anything else? You want to add something? Okay. So, as Tinda has said, some very important questions, which are kind of some of the two that you just kind of hit on if you've already seen this, I feel like. But every nonprofit kind of has a humble beginning, and I think that's important to think of with vision, because if you think about like Operation Breakthrough, Connecting for Good, one thing that we didn't mention is that they're two very different states. Operation Breakthrough has been well established and has been around the community for a while, whereas Connecting for Good is very young and still in its, I'm going to call it its watering phase. It already has its seed, but it's still kind of figuring out where it's going to grow. But you have to ask yourselves, like, where do you picture those you serve going, and how do you plan to serve them? And to make it even more personal, I feel like you have to make sure that your vision aligns with where you're going, so you can actively affect the community you're going into. So Operation Breakthrough, their vision statement in a nutshell is pretty much, empowering the youth from low income, and you've heard, through advocacy, emergency aid, and everything like that. But it's important to think of, when you came into college, everyone told you, don't join like 15 different clubs, you can't do it, it's not something, feasible, which is very true, because once you've kind of been here for a couple of years, then you can kind of figure out what you can handle and what you can't. And with Operation Breakthrough, it's important to think of how much is too much. You saw on that list, there was like 9 different bullet points that they take care of. Whereas Connecting for Good, they're just not established enough to take on more. In fact, it's a lot harder. So with the vision, I guess you just have to know where you're going, and I feel like they've established that they wanted to do this, and it's always been changed and evolved, which is why they've been able to take on more.
Hey guys, so the next one's going to be Connecting for Good. And we've already talked about it. They're going to break the digital divide, just to give you a brief overview. They're providing technologies and access to these computers, and hopefully that helps them, the community, improve in terms of skills and accessibility. In comparison to Operation Breakthrough, as Brianna touched upon it, Connecting for Good is relatively new, and because of that, they don't have the same resources as Operation Breakthrough. That being, collaborators, funding, refunding, integration, being within the community, and as a result, they're not as efficient. With my experiences in Connecting for Good, at the time I was there, I noticed that they were stretched too out they're stretching their resources out over too many issues. And because of that, you're not going to be efficient. In order for Connect for Good as of now to be efficient, they need to assess what resources they have, and from there, delegate where I should put my resources into so they can be efficient. But as of now, Connect for Good isn't well integrated in the community. Over time, however, once they become more integrated and they're more well established, they have to reassess their resources and what they have to offer, and they have to ask themselves these two questions. What do they see themselves in the future, and who do they see themselves serving? And when you do that, you'll be more effective in what you want to do. Now, in conclusion, in terms of what a successful nonprofit consists of, ideally, it's one that is constantly evolving. Over time, if you go to any nonprofit and you ask them, hey, what was your original mission statement, and ask them what's your mission statement today, they'll tell you two completely different things. In order for these nonprofits to be successful, they have to evolve in terms of what they offer, the services they provide, and who they work with. Right, and eventually you just grow slowly.
Thank you. All right, so next we're going to talk about your foundation, which you see there's a storybook under there. Might be a little confusing, but hopefully that will make sense along the way. So first I want to ask, I think you asked earlier, is anybody in here interested in starting your own nonprofit? Anybody thought about it? Yeah? Okay, so can I ask you a couple questions? Yeah? Okay. So what do you want to work with? What kind of
I'm an architecture student and I want to design housing for third world countries where they can't survive for themselves.
Okay, cool. So what made you think third world countries?
I've been to the Philippines.
Okay, so you went to the Philippines, and what did you learn there that really touched you?
It was in 2010, so it was right after the tsunami. So all the people there they have nothing. They were forced to move these refugee camps, and they're so happy, and they wanted to give me things, and I was there to help them, and it just touched my heart, I guess.
Did it inspire you? Yeah, that sounds like. What's your name?
Abby.
Abby? Okay, so Abby, I want to first of all thank you for sharing that with us. It was really nice to hear. That's really incredible what you're trying to do and the reasons that you're trying to do it. So what you just said is, what we're going to call the example of your story. So we visited one other nonprofit, well, a bunch of other nonprofits, but one of them was Communities Creating Opportunities. And what the representative there did with us is he kind of sat us down and he basically did kind of what I just did to you. He asked, so what do you want to do? Why? And we just thought it was going to be, the basic, I'm Chelsea Turner, I'm studying communication disorders and I want to work here. But he asked a lot more questions. He went a lot deeper with that. He wanted to know, so why? What in your childhood? What did you grow up around? And he was asking some really personal questions for somebody who had only known us for 2 minutes. And then he took, after he asked all of us and we all got very personal about why we wanted to do what we wanted to do, he took the time to slow down with us and be really open about his own background and what brought him into where he is today, why he works with the purpose that he does and why he does what he does. So he said that what was really important about that stood out to us was your story and the importance of your story. You have to know what your purpose is and what in you connects to what you're doing. Because if you don't have that kind of passion or that kind of drive that really sits within you, then people are going to be able to spot that. People can really sense authenticity from a mile away. So if you don't really know why you're doing what you're doing, you can't really expect anybody else to follow you. So that was the first really important thing that we learned from him. So after you know what your story is, you have to be able to have your story on the ready. You have to know that that's your core and that's what drives you. And then you have to start partaking in what we call connectivity, which is the process of sharing your story with others. And when you share your story with others, you want to make sure that, just like Abby was, thank you so much, you want to be vulnerable. You want to be able to share with people what part of you connects with others, because that's the thing that's going to be able to build a relationship and build some kind of future. So, and like you touched on really beautifully a while ago, you have to really know the community that you serve, because if you put yourself
on some position higher than them, like you're on some pedestal and you're here to bandage them or make them better. People aren't going to want that kind of help from you. You have to make sure that you're always on the same level with the community that you intend to serve, and you have to be ready to be open with them so that you can really have a good effect on them.
So at our time at Operation Breakthrough, we saw some great examples of a strong foundation and some really good connections with the community. At our time there, we learned that the organization started with just 2 nuns and a strong passion for the education of children that are in poverty or in the local community. And that small group and that strong passion has grown in the last few decades into such a large organization. You've seen how well connected it is and how much they're doing for the community. But they still hold on to that original passion. So we talked to a lot of the faculty members within the organization, and we asked them a lot of questions about what they're doing and how they go about it. And they gave us some really solid answers, but one thing we noticed was that they always traced their answers back to the original 2 nuns and their great passion for education and children. And so we felt like that was, it was really good that they understand where they came from originally, and that they know how to communicate that passion towards us. And so at our time with Connecting for Good, we found that same passion, but it's a much younger organization. Their problem is a much younger topic, I guess, with the digital divide and communication. And so the organization is still kind of finding its foundation, kind of settling in, like we mentioned before. We went around to talk with some of the residents that they're trying to help in their community. And what we found is that many of them didn't even know that Connecting for Good was, just down the street from them. And they didn't know what they wanted or that they even wanted to help. And so that's where we found that Connecting for Good was struggling a little bit, is that they didn't really have that strong connection with the people they're trying to help. And so having a good organization is a lot, having that foundation is a lot like having your own book, like your filled with your own personal story. It can have so much passion and detail in it, but the important thing is if people know about it. People need to know what it's all about, and so they can, reach out and connect with that.
Hi everyone. So how many of you guys are from Kansas City? How many of you guys are engineers? Okay. So like I mentioned, my name is Marco Loma and I'm a mechanical engineer. The reason I asked you guys is because they didn't mention this, but we went to Boston last year and we did the same thing. Boston was amazing. There were a lot of good organizations there who really inspired me, and I didn't think it could get any better than Boston. So when they told us we were going to KC, I was like, I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm from KC. I was raised in Wyandotte. So I didn't really see all of that help that we saw here. But when we went to KC, I was really inspired. And it kind of made me think of what I want to do with my life. Do I want to take my mechanical engineering skills and make an Iron Man suit, or do I want to work in a nonprofit? But I don't know if you guys know of all these companies that were here. I didn't know about them, and they're really great companies. I thought some of them were better than Boston's. And to summarize it, I see some of you guys are taking notes, and I really thank you guys, because that means you care. And you guys were really attentive to what we were saying. So the last 3 points I want to make is to network. Even if you don't want to go into nonprofit, you can use this in your clubs here at K-State. or anywhere else, you need to network. The more networking you do, the more support you will have. And that way you can make a foundation. But you also need to have a good vision and mission statement. You want to be able to impact those who you're trying to impact. You have to have measurable goals. If you are networking and you're getting support from people, then you need to be able to tell them what you did, how you did it, and how many people you impacted. Because believe it or not, nonprofit is a business. Actually, we went to visit Habitat for Humanity, and the CEO there told us that nonprofit was a business. You have to make money to run, and if you don't make money and get that support from people, then your nonprofit and what you're trying to do is not going to be accomplished. But besides that, you also, like the last 2 points that we talked about, was a good foundation. You need to be vulnerable. You need to not be an intruder. A lot of you guys said that you want others, the people you're trying to help, to feel like you're part of them. So just tell them your story. Don't feel above them. And that, I hope you guys use this. I know I will in my club. So we're going to do a panel next. So if you guys have any questions for the panelists, you guys feel free to ask. And here's our picture. That was with Teach for America. So thank you guys.
Our group definitely has like some of like the best minds within our major, so it's important that we like connect among each other. So even though I'm going into urban planning and want to start my own nonprofit someday, that doesn't mean that I can't then turn to Marcus and say, hey, I just bought this new property and I need some landscape like developed and I need some landscape architecture planned, or go to Cipriana and say I need new marketing for this, like for my new company and stuff like that. So it's really about like you need to network intentionally with like other nonprofits and people who have a nonprofit focus, but also people in the corporate world. Because even if we're not ending up all in nonprofits, it's important that like we allow other people who are in corporate world to then be a part of our cause.
What do you believe is the most valuable skill set needed in working with not-for-profits?
I think no matter what part of nonprofit you are, whether you're the CEO or the person working at the front desk, humility is definitely a major aspect of being able to work with people that you're helping, because you don't help anyone if you don't have any humility yourself. Giving yourself that humility and saying that I want to help these people because I know that they need my help. Despite myself being a CEO of the highest position of this company, I know that my purpose in this company is still to give back to the community.
I'd probably say communication. You can have a huge vision and have these real big expectations and goals that you want to achieve, but if you can't communicate to people how you're going to do that or why you want to do that, then it's going to be hard to get there. And also the communication builds on networking and communicating with others as well, and using them to help out with your goal.
I'm sure if you haven't heard it, his brother has this amazing quote, and it's passion is made up of 2 parts, love and hate. You have to love what you do and oppose what hate, and hate what opposes it. So I feel like you kind of have to make sure that you know that what you're doing is what you want to do, and you're very passionate about it, and you know that's what you want to succeed for.
What would be your piece of advice for people who want to get involved with nonprofits? Maybe they're not at a point where they want to start one, but like at least start getting their foot in the door and seeing what it's all about. How do you even begin that process?
I feel like being able to get your foot in there, like talking to people and doing some volunteer work, especially. So first of all, identify what you want to do, get a sense of what you're into and interested in. Contact people that work in those fields, and then if you can, do some work in those fields, and then really get your feel for what you want to do. And when you do that, you'll like everything, like what you enjoy will precipitate out of that, you know, and you'll be able to identify and really work with it. And on top of that, it opens up doors and people who also share similar interests.
I know here, just at K-State, if you don't want to like make the big calls just yet, I know hands-on K-State is a lot of community. A lot of community service stuff. So I bet you they could, if you're really interested in working with some nonprofits, I highly recommend talking with the hands-on coordinators. Ani right over there.
I
And
work upstairs.
yep, there you
So
go.
if you ever want to pop by, there's 4 of us. It's Manhattan Good Neighbors and Hands On, and we have a ton of events for you guys to choose from. You can go online, look us up. We have a calendar of all the upcoming volunteer opportunities. Let's check it out.
What do you all feel like are the greatest challenges in working with non-for-profits?
I think that's a very variable question, or it has a lot of variety to it because every nonprofit has different challenges, just depending on who you're trying to serve and the challenges that they face in their lives every day, and how you're trying to serve them. So one of my favorites was reaching out from within, and what they do is they go into the prison system and try to help the prisoners give themselves a class over just discussing the challenges that they face in their childhood and how that has affected them into becoming the person that they are now. And it really just serves on helping them stay away from the prison system after they get out and really realize, change the way that they were behaving before they entered the prison system. So that's a lot different than a nonprofit that focuses on getting food to the community or those that don't have food or opportunity to get that. And even just the digital divide is completely different than any other nonprofit that doesn't deal with technology. But one of the most important things is one of the founders from Connecting for Good said, you always want to try and think that in 5 years, I don't want my business to be here anymore because the problem's going to be solved. And so one of the biggest challenges is how do I get rid of this problem so that we no longer have to worry about it.
We don't always talk about faith and service and faith and leadership. What did you see in Kansas City about faith? Was there any part of what you saw, of what you heard, that inspired you in the organizations that you saw?
One of the other nonprofits that we visited was the Guadalupe Centers, and so they focus on it's basically a different private school. Not technically, it's not a private. Sorry, completely wrong. It's a public school. However, they are selective on the students that they take in based on. It's basically like a lottery. So they take names in. People apply to go into the school, and then they take a lottery to pick the students that are accepted into the school. And they have some of the highest standards of excellence for schools across the Missouri side, which is really incredible. And they get a lot of resources from the Guadalupe Center, which is also very diverse and helps immigrants acquire the needs that they have, or just get used to living in the United States, getting the resources that they need. And that's a faith-based organization. However, it also depends on how you define your faith. If you're religious, of course you want to help out, but you don't have to be religious to help or know that you want to help the community.
Would you be surprised that nearly all the organizations you saw had a faith-based beginning? They did.
Do you think that all of this, like all the qualities of these nonprofits, translates to nonprofits that don't have to, like my main nonprofit interest so far in my life has been with animals. Like, do you think all of these qualities translate like exactly to nonprofits that deal with not humans? Like,
I think for these, this is like general nonprofit organizations. So as long as you get the ideas of the qualities that you need for the nonprofits and what you need to do to make sure and secure the success for your nonprofit, then I'd say yes, it would translate directly. Your purpose would be different, but as an organization, I'd say that these are the qualities that would be necessary to be successful.
A few of you to share, maybe a breakthrough moment that you had, or like a aha moment on the trip, like something that really resonated with you.
Yeah, for me, mine kind of came at a weird time. we were volunteering at Connecting for Good, and we were cleaning up the back of their place because they needed it kind of clean. And I was sweeping, and I just like, we already visited Nonprofit Connect and everything. And so that I started thinking about that, and I started thinking, oh wait, something that would be really cool to do is, and especially because, well, okay, let me back this up a little bit. When we went to Nonprofit or Connecting for Good the second time, we went in experiencing, like seeing what they were, like what their problems were the first time when we went Monday. And when we went Thursday, we got to see that, like hands-on what we could tell them that they can improve on. And we were able to give their CEO feedback on what they could do differently to impact their community better. And as I was sweeping, I was thinking, well, why couldn't that be my career of going into places like this that need help connecting to their community, getting their goals? Why couldn't I be like a nonprofit consultant and going in and helping them out with it and like getting like hands-on time with them and telling them what they can improve on from like ground zero. So that was mine right there.
I think another one would be when we did volunteer service for Habitat for Humanity. We were there, and it was a good group, and a good number of us painting a house on the outside, and we were planning on staying there from like 8 to 3 p.m. and we ended up finishing a lot sooner because of the number of people we had. And when we did finish, it was good to see, and it was great to hear the man that was in charge. He told us to take a good look at the paint that was on the house, because that was going to be the paint that was going to be helping and housing the people that are going to live there for the next 20 years. So that kind of just touched me and helped me realize that we were making a difference.
I think one of the biggest moments for me in the entire trip was we actually had a dinner where Dr. Franklin invited some of the alumni from the Edgerley-Franklin group and other members of the community, and even Sue Ellen, who was CEO of Reaching Out from Within, the prisoner program I told you about. Then there's 2 prisoners, one who actually works for the program now and helps other prisoners, and another one named Reggie. And Reggie was telling a story to us about the experiences that he'd gone through in the prison system, and how much Dr. Franklin had actually helped him, being a psychology teacher while he was in prison. And so hearing his story and how much Dr. Franklin impacted his life really got to me and thinking, how much he's actually impacted our lives, or my life in particular, and giving me an opportunity to be here where I am, and to give back after he's given back to me. And so seeing other people's lives being impacted by someone who is that close to you, or you can have a normal conversation with, is pretty exciting. And so I think just even knowing Dr. Franklin and knowing a lot of people I know now is part of being in that networking, or I have networked because of the people that I know now. So this trip was definitely touching that way.